I always thought the hardest part of cheating would be the act itself, the moment of physical crossing. I was wrong. The hardest part was waking up the morning after and seeing Ethan's face next to mine. That was the moment the betrayal truly began, because that was the moment I chose to live the lie. Ethan and I had been together for 6 years. We were the couple everyone envied. Stable, comfortable, predictable, the kind of love that felt like a worn-in sweater. He was a high school history teacher, solid and kind, with a gentle laugh and a focus on our future. We had the mortgage, the dog named Gus, and a shared Google Calendar that tracked holidays and vet appointments. It wasn't the fiery Hollywood romance, but it was real. It was safe. And for a long time, safety was exactly what I wanted. The cracks started appearing not with a dramatic fight, but with the slow, almost imperceptible drift that happens when you stop paying attention. Ethan got heavily involved in the teachers' union negotiations. His evenings were consumed by calls and dense, printed out packets of policy. When he was home, he was exhausted, physically present but mentally miles away. I, on the other hand, was climbing the ladder at a mid-sized marketing agency, and the demands there were constant, electric, and frankly, kind of intoxicating. My life with Ethan felt like black and white photos. My work life felt like HD color. That's where Mark came in. Mark was the creative director. He was 10 years older than me, divorced, cynical in a charming way, and utterly magnetic. He didn't hover, but he noticed. He noticed when I cut my hair. He noticed the late nights I pulled. And he noticed the subtle, tired slump in my shoulders that Ethan, preoccupied with saving the teachers' pensions, never registered. The attention wasn't overtly sexual at first. It was professional praise layered with intense personal interest. "You're too smart for this spreadsheet stuff, Sarah," he'd say, leaning against my desk late one Tuesday night, the only light coming from the city skyline. "You need a challenge that actually excites you." He saw my ambition and didn't try to dampen it or redirect it. He fueled it. One evening, we were finalizing a huge pitch. It was almost midnight. Ethan had texted 3 hours earlier. "Hey, hope work's okay. Got takeout, slept right through it. Lol. Love you." A message that meant well but felt utterly hollow. Mark ordered 2 bottles of expensive red wine to the office, and we celebrated the pitch's success alone. We talked for hours, not about work, but about feeling stagnant, about missing the adrenaline rush of new love, about the fear of settling. I remember staring at his eyes across the desk. They weren't Ethan's kind eyes. Mark's eyes were sharp, evaluating, and they made me feel like the most fascinating thing he had ever seen. He reached across the table and took my hand, not to hold it, but to trace a line on my wrist. The tension in the quiet office was suffocating, and the familiarity of his touch, a man I barely knew, was overwhelming. I should have stood up. I should have driven straight home to Ethan, to the safe, sweater-like love. Instead, I stayed. I told myself it was just a moment, just wine, just fatigue. But deep down, I knew it was something else entirely. It was an escape hatch I was actively testing. Thank you for the signal. Here is part 2 of the story, covering the crossing of the line, the immediate fallout of the single night, and the toxic decision to stay. Part 2. The line crosses us. Emotional tension that had been building with Mark finally snapped 2 weeks after that late night in the office. It was during an industry convention out of town. Ethan was already gone on a school field trip, so the absence felt pre-approved, almost clean. I kept telling myself it was a what-I'm work thing, that I was dedicated to the agency's success. But the truth was, Mark and I were operating in our own secret orbit. After the keynote, the team went out. Everyone was loud and celebratory, but Mark kept drawing me aside, his voice low, his hand finding the small of my back often enough that it stopped feeling like an accident. When the night wound down and the others headed to their rooms, Mark stopped me in the hallway. I knew, with sickening, absolute clarity, what was about to happen. There were no grand declarations of love, no promises of a future, just a shared exhaustion from the constant masquerade of professional distance and the overwhelming human need to feel seen. He kissed me. It wasn't the kind of kiss you see in movies. It was desperate, clumsy, and heavy with all the things we hadn't said for months. We ended up in his room. The whole event was a blur of electric guilt and profound relief. Relief that someone wanted me that much, and guilt that the person I wanted was not the man waiting for me at home, the man whose ring was still on my finger. The morning after was a study in stark contrast. Mark was pragmatic, almost attached. "That was intense, Sarah," he said, already focused on the coffee machine. He wasn't malicious, but he wasn't looking at me like I was his forever, either. He looked at me like I was a problem solved, a risk taken. The emotional depth I thought we had shared the previous night evaporated under the harsh fluorescent light of morning. He was just a coworker again, a boss, someone whose professional respect I still needed. I got in my car and drove the 2 hours home. I didn't cry. I was numb. The reality of what I had done was a cold, hard stone in my stomach. The affair was done. Just one night. A single, definitive act of betrayal. I walked into my house. Ethan was home early from his field trip, sitting on the sofa, grading papers, with Gus curled up asleep on his lap. He looked up, his smile wide and genuine. "Hi, you're back. How was the convention? Want me to order pizza?" That smile, that uncomplicated, trusting, deeply loving smile was what broke me. In that moment, the lie solidified. I looked at the mortgage, at Gus, at the history we had built, and I panicked. Leaving him would mean blowing up 6 years of shared life, hurting his gentle heart, and facing a world where I was the villain who blew up her life for a cheap hotel room tryst with her boss. Mark wasn't offering a future. Ethan was the future. I made the toxic, cowardly choice. I hugged Ethan tighter than usual, buried my face in his neck, and whispered, "I missed you so much." I let him believe that my intensity was love, not guilt. I told myself I would bury it, that it was a what-I mistake made under extreme professional and emotional duress, and that the kindest thing I could do now was erase it and be the wife he deserved. The problem with burying a body is that it always leaves a smell. From that day forward, I was a ghost in my own relationship. I was present for the movie nights and the long talks, but every word I spoke, every kiss I gave, felt like an elaborate act. I had cheated on him physically once, but I was now cheating on him every single day by letting him love a woman who had irrevocably broken her vows and couldn't bring herself to confess. The one night with Mark was over, but the cruelest betrayal, the quiet, prolonged death of my honesty had just begun. The silence became my prison. Every morning, I woke up next to Ethan, and the first thought wasn't "I love you," but he doesn't know. That secret, heavy and suffocating, permeated every corner of our shared life. We went through the motions, dinners, vacations, holidays with family, but everything felt tainted, filtered through a thick pane of glass. I was there, but I wasn't there. My relationship with Mark at work became an excruciating tightrope walk. We had an unspoken agreement. That night never happened. We maintained a professional distance, sometimes overly so, which everyone else probably attributed to a brief, intense project concluding. But the tension was always there, a live wire humming just beneath the surface. Every time he looked at me, a flicker in his eyes, I saw it, the memory, the casual dismissal, the stark reminder of my moral collapse. He moved on, as expected, with casual flirtations and new projects. I was left with the wreckage. Ethan, oblivious, tried harder. He noticed my quietness, my occasional distant stares. "Everything okay, babe?" he'd ask, his brow furrowed with genuine concern. "You seem a little spacey lately. Work stress." I'd offer some vague excuse about deadlines, about client demands, about being tired. He'd hug me, try to reassure me, and I'd feel another pang of guilt so sharp it sometimes stole my breath. He was loving a ghost, a carefully constructed illusion of the woman he thought I was. The guilt wasn't a sudden, burning pain. It was a dull, constant ache that settled in my bones and wouldn't leave. It ate away at my joy, my spontaneity, my ability to truly connect. I stopped laughing as freely, stopped initiating intimacy, and became a master of deflection. 2 years passed like this. 2 years of Ethan loving a phantom. 2 years of me suffocating under the weight of my lie. The betrayal wasn't just the physical act. It was the slow, agonizing erosion of trust I allowed to continue daily. It was the decision, every single day, to protect myself from confrontation rather than protect his heart from a lie. Then came the conversation that truly broke me, though not in the way he intended. We were having dinner, a quiet evening at home. Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. "Sarah," he began, his voice soft. "I've been thinking. We've been through so much. We've built such a good life. I think I'm ready to start thinking about kids." His eyes were full of hope, full of the future we had always talked about, and in that moment, the ghost I had become finally shattered. How could I bring an innocent life into a home built on such a fundamental deception? How could I look at a child, a symbol of pure, unblemished love, knowing the rot that festered beneath my own foundation? I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and finally, truly cried. Not for myself, not for Mark, but for Ethan, for his kindness, his unwavering trust, and for the beautiful future he was offering a woman who was no longer capable of receiving it honestly. I didn't confess that night. I still couldn't. The thought of shattering him, of seeing the pain in his eyes, was a terror I couldn't face. But something shifted. The silence that had once been my protection became an unbearable burden. I started looking at him, truly looking. And all I saw was the man I had robbed of truth, of an honest chance at happiness. The story of my affair didn't end with a bang or a dramatic discovery. It ended with a quiet, devastating realization. The cruelest thing I ever did wasn't the single night of betrayal, but the 2 years I stayed, letting him love a ghost, stealing his time and his genuine affection with a woman who had fundamentally changed. I eventually left, not with a confession, but with a vague, painful explanation of feeling lost and needing to find myself. It was another lie, a softer one, but a lie nonetheless. Ethan deserved the truth, and I was too cowardly to give it to him. I simply evaporated from his life, leaving him with a shattered heart and the lingering question of why. And I knew, in the deepest part of my soul, that I deserved every agonizing moment of the silence I was left with.